Hi, I'm Jeff Wilson, and this talk is about document comprehension, and in particular why generative AI is unsuitable for such applications. If we look to a future when we finally have AI conversational assistants of human quality, we might wonder as to the underlying mathematics, as it will be this mathematics that determines the structure of the cognitive memories that must be created in order to capture the meaning of a document. What concepts can we encode? How can we represent these concepts? And in particular, what form of representation should we use? Hopefully one where the focus will be on conceptual concepts, not words, so that the representations used will be as language independent as possible. I call the device that takes the document and converts it into a structured set of cognitive memories a comprehender, and I call the structured set of cognitive memories so created the cognom of the document. Once we have created a cognom, the question then becomes, what can we do with it? But before answering this question, let me first consider a very important economic issue, and that is whether the cognomes of the future will be created to a universal standard, or will they be proprietary, with different forms of representation and meaning from companies such as Adobe, Amazon, Apple, Facebook, Google, IBM, Microsoft, Oracle, Samsung, SAP, or Qualcomm, to name but a few. So will this future be like telephony before standardization, or will it be a standards-based future, so that interconnectivity and standardization drive wealth creation? Given the importance of document comprehension to future healthcare in particular, and economic activity in general, a zoo of standards would not seem to be particularly helpful, and so an important issue is surely how best to proceed to maximize economic gain. As I have spent over 20 years analysing the structural requirements and mathematics of cognitive memories, it may be appropriate that initially Precise Intelligence Limited becomes the standards body for the cognom, before later moving the task to an agreed international forum. If instead of a standards-based approach, each generative AI system were to be upgraded to use its tokens as the basis for cognitive memory, we would have worse than a zoo. We would have an unmanageable jungle. A cognom needs to be more than an almost random set of tokens created by generative AI statistical models, as it must unambiguously encode meaning. We currently use a web browser to interact with a website, and we will need something similar, let us call it a cognitive browser, to interact with cognoms. Generative AI systems are unsuitable for use as a comprehender for the very simple reason that any cognitive concepts which are approximated by tokens and their associated positioning are built up from the training data and the training algorithms in an imprecise manner. Such structures, by their very nature, are variable from one system to another and from one build to another, and as such there is no possibility of building independent verification tools. Also, as soon as independent user data is added to an existing generative AI system, the tokens and the approximated concepts will all be modified. However, there is also a more fundamental architectural problems. We have seen that generative AI systems prefer to hallucinate rather than admitting their limitations. But for document comprehension, such systems' limitations are of even more concern. As a simple example of this issue, let me consider the resolution of the French personal pronoun son. Does this resolve to his or her? Now, it may be impossible to unambiguously resolve the meaning in all cases, and therefore the only way forward is to use a meta-language to embed this uncertainty into the cognom. Yet such capabilities are a very, very long way from the approximating capabilities of generative AI systems. As you will see later in this series of talks, ChatGPT doesn't even begin to understand the concept of siblings, one of the very simplest cognitive concepts.